In the CBS poll, nearly 2/3 of American adults think that Trump's policies are contributing to higher grocery and food prices. Let's say that again. Nearly 2/3 of voters think that Trump himself is the one raising their prices. That should be a giant warning sign for Trump and a bit of encouragement for Democrats. Welcome back to Polar Coaster. I'm Dan Pheiffer. On today's show, we'll discuss two new polls which tell us a lot about Trump's political standing, how the country feels about the economy, vaccines, and the deployment of National Guard troops to cities. Then we'll dig into the growing gender gap, the divide among Gen Z voters, take a look at what's happening in the New York City mayoral race, and of course, as always, I'll wrap up by answering your Discord questions. Joining us is our amazing producer, Caroline Reston. Caroline, how are you?
Dan, I'm sweating. It's 1 million degrees in LA, and I just had to turn off my AC for this. So this video will get progressively grosser from me.
Well, I want the audience to know that you are suffering for your art.
I really am suffering for my art. Thank you for noticing that. Okay, so let's get into this. So there has been a lot of discussion of Trump's numbers creeping back up in recent weeks. And over the weekend, there were two new high-quality polls from CBS News and NBC News. What do they tell us about Trump's political standings as we head into the fall?
Well, Caroline, contrary to popular belief and conventional wisdom, Donald Trump's political standing is... it is not good. His numbers, and both these polls have him at 43, 44, and 40 approval ratings of 43 in one, 44 in the other. He's deeply underwater. This fits with the average that we see both in Nate Silver and G. Elliott Morris's polling average, as well as kind of Trump's average to date. But what is important to note is that this is a very low approval rating for a president at this point in their presidency. At this point in Joe Biden's presidency, he basically had a net neutral approval. He was like 49. It was like 49 and a half, 50 and a half, or vice versa, depending on how you look at it. And it's important to note that this is in Biden's presidency. This is after the withdrawal from Afghanistan, which was the moment when his numbers started to come down. So even after that, Biden is still doing net approval rating of 7 points better than Trump. So that's very important. And I want to look we'll get into a whole bunch of issues in this polls, but there's one particular thing on the economy, right? We talk all the time about how the economy is everyone's top issue. It is in the NBC poll. Economy / cost of living is 30 points higher than any other issue in the poll in terms of people's priorities. And people do not like how he's handling inflation. He has a 39% approval rating on inflation, which is about where Biden's number was sort of at this point in 2024. He is the tariffs are underwater. And in the CBS poll, nearly 2/3 of American adults think that Trump's policies are contributing to higher grocery and food prices. Let's say that again. Nearly 2/3 of voters think that Trump himself is the one raising their prices. That should be a giant warning sign for Trump and a bit of encouragement for Democrats.
How do you think the new Epstein drawing has helped or hurt him?
I don't think it's helped. I will say that.
His drawing skills were god awful. Okay.
That's your takeaway? is the art? Yes.
So I know these polls ask specifically about Trump deploying troops to D.C. and elsewhere. I was actually just in Chicago and saw troops in Chicago. It was really crazy. And it seems like Dems have been twisted in knots about how to talk about this issue. So what are the polls saying?
Yeah, so this is you're hitting on something that has been true in every conversation I've been having with Democrats over the last couple of weeks is what do we say? How do we talk about it? Isn't crime Trump's best issue? Aren't we falling into his trap? There's been message testing from various groups which show that there's not really a great way to make the argument. And so there is this sort of school of thought among Democrats that is we shouldn't, this is Trump's strength. Don't go after his strength. Focus on the areas where he's weaker, like I just talked about, like inflation or his poorly rendered naked women Epstein drawings or or Medicaid cuts or all the other things where we have a stronger advantage, even immigration where we have a stronger advantage. The challenge of that, obviously, is when the president deploys troops to an American city, it's pretty hard for American politicians not to talk about that. You can't really just ignore it or just call it a distraction from this other issue. You kind of have to talk about it. And these polls suggest that we have much less to fear than sort of political operatives and strategists seem to think. There is majority disapproval of sending troops to D.C. there is, and I think even more notably, less than 40% of voters want Trump to send National Guard troops to their area. The way to, I think, to understand this is when you look at the numbers, not in this poll, but more broadly, people think crime is too high. That's one. Two, in the CBS poll, people do see a connection between troops going to a city and crime coming down. So, which sort of somewhat, it's a really silly logical thing. If you deploy the army to a city, you would imagine it would probably affect crime in some way, shape, or form. But because so few people want the National Guard to come to their city, what that tells you is that they think that's a price too high to pay for lower crime rates. And what they'd rather do is try to have better traditional crime prevention, have the police, local officials, prosecutors, mayors deal with it, not a bunch of troops sent from other states. And I think that really goes to undermine Trump's argument and gives Democrats a way to talk about this without, like, we don't want to seem, quote unquote, soft on crime. We don't want to buy into the premise Republicans are making, but we can argue that sending these troops against the wishes of local police, local mayors, and local residents is a political stunt, is not really doing what Trump said it's going to do. Like, that is an argument that this poll suggests has some purchase.
People who approve of deploying troops to cities, is there any information about where they are located? Like, are these people from the cities or people who do not live in the cities who are like, yes, I'm pro you going to the city because it doesn't affect me?
We don't have that level of geographic information, but because there's a huge partisan breakdown where Democrats overwhelmingly oppose this, Republicans overwhelmingly support it. What we know about the partisan makeups of cities like D.C., we've seen polling in D.C., which shows that D.C. residents overwhelmingly oppose it. Chicago's an overwhelmingly Democratic city. I don't know off the top of my head what Harris won the city by, but it's by a lot. And so if 90% or whatever it is of Democrats nationally oppose it, you have to imagine the residents of Chicago, which are overwhelmingly Democratic, also oppose it at that level. But you would need a Chicago-specific poll to know that for sure.
Okay, let's talk about RFK and vaccines. So he had a really belligerent testimony in front of Congress last week that I know every single podcast has talked about. RFK is unwinding our vaccine system. Is this what people want? Are we just a nation of anti-vax kooks now?
No, absolutely not. And there's been this sense, and you see this in a lot of the sort of discourse. You see this in how various entities in the world, corporations, media companies, law firms are responding. They are appeasing Trump. And one of the arguments they seem to make is, well, the 2024 election shows this embrace of the MAGA agenda. Included in that is vaccines, right? We have Florida unwinding, eliminating vaccine mandates, not for COVID, but for measles, whooping cough, everything else. For schools, right? For school children. And the idea that this is what the country wants is bullshit. The idea that this is what Republicans want is bullshit. So in the NBC poll, they have nearly 80% of voters think that vaccines are a good way to prevent diseases. And that includes 2/3 of Republicans, nearly 3/4 of independents. And so they are, and the RFK Jr. is in the very, very fringe. Republicans always talk about 80-20 issues, how Democrats are always putting themselves on the wrong side of 80-20 issues. That's not actually true, but this is an 80-20 issue, and RFK Jr. is putting Trump on the wrong side of it. And you can kind of tell Trump gets it because he was asked about the Florida vaccine mandates in an event at the White House last week after RFK Jr.'s hearing, and he did say that vaccines were a good way to prevent disease. Which, is that because he supports vaccines? Is that because he thinks it's good politically? Or is that because he hates DeSantis? Hard to know, but I found that to be a notable answer from him.
Do you think RFK is at risk at all of getting fired?
Probably not, because I think Trump really does believe that sort of those Maha voters were important to his victory. It's hard to fire someone Trump doesn't like to make powerful enemies. It's why he tried so hard not to fight with Elon Musk until Elon Musk went after him. And so I would not bet on Trump firing him. Will there be additional political pressure on RFK Jr. from other Republicans? Maybe. But other than Bill Cassidy and the other doctor in the Senate, whose name escapes me, John Barrasso, I think is what is. The Republicans seem to be pretty fine with what RFK Jr. is doing, or at least willing to, too timid to talk about it publicly.
Is RFK Jr. a powerful enemy? Like, is he really that?
Well, I think he just has a platform and he's famous, and he's not Elon Musk in terms of his power, but firing. Let's put it this way. If Trump were to decide he does not like the Secretary of Energy and he wanted to fire Chris Wright, a person whose name has never been uttered on any podcast in history, that is an easier decision than firing RFK Jr., I think, politically.